How's it going, YouTube? Yeah, Pat back here, bringing you our mid-season recap for the TGR Season 6 VGC Violet division. We didn't have our power rankings done quite in time for it to make sense, so we're doing a mid-season recap instead. And I'm just going to talk about each team. A couple things I'm going to look at how well is the team doing overall. If there's anything that seems like it's working versus not working kind of idea. And then if I have any suggested changes. You can see on the right side of your screen the current standings for all the teams, and top 6 make it into playoffs, so you have a sense of who is in the race at the moment and who is struggling to kind of get their foot in at those last steps. Yeah, and then we'll take a look at how the season's going overall for all these teams. I'm planning on doing this for draft order, so Lady Lilac had the first pick, and then we'll work our way all around to the last pick, so it's not necessarily based on whose team I think is strongest or anything like that. Yeah, we'll just take a look at it as it goes. So one thing I will say for Lady Lilac's team, you can see over on the left side here which Pokemon she's brought to all of her games. Like, obviously there are Pokemon that are, like, there's not enough here to match all of the games that she's played, because I know she'd made a handful of transactions, so like, for instance, Tinkaton isn't on this list anymore, because I know she made some changes, and like Iron Valiant hasn't been brought at all. I know this was a transaction that she made at week 4, so like she's already made some adjustments in terms of how her team is set up, and she's brought the Dondozo and Tatsugiri combo. I think she traded for it like right before week 4 and then decided to bring it for week 4, and obviously did really well. Like, the Dondozo has no deaths, has 4 KOs, so looking absolutely strong at the moment. Which, hold up, that doesn't make any sense. How's that 4 kills, no deaths, and a +3 KD? Okay, our doc might be a little off. We'll have to figure that out. Okay, actually, it looks like there's a 1 right here for deaths, so I don't know. I don't know why it's not looking this up, but I'm not going to try to figure out coding for a doc while in the middle of a video. So anyway, overall, she's doing great. You can see on the standing, she's in third place at the moment with the 3-1 record with +8 kill differential. So she's doing overall really well in her matches. And doesn't surprise me at all. I'm super interested to see what she ends up doing with this team, because it feels like it's very high-low, you know, so it's like she's got a lot of really high-tier threats with like Chi-Yu, Iron Hands, Dondozo and Tatsugiri, Iron Valiant. Like, all those Pokemon from our tier list are in the first like 1, 2, or 3 categories, with probably being in the first or second. I don't think any of those are less than third. Tatsugiri might be a little bit lower, but aside from that, the other ones are really high. Anyway, yeah, so she has a very high tier team and very low tier team. So it's going to be interesting to see how people prep against it. Like, maybe some of these low tier threats low tier Pokemon. I don't know if we can call them a threat. Maybe they're going to have to pull their weight, because people are obviously going to come prepared for this higher level threats, but can you really prep for all of them? I don't know. I mean, how do you prep for Chi-Yu Iron Hands? Like, that's a crazy amount of like physical offense and special offense. So you can't really wall them. I guess the play would be to try to kill them if you can. I mean, they're both weak to ground, I guess, so maybe that's something that people can bring. But if you're bringing ground types, then you have to face Tatsugiri and Dondozo, which doesn't sound like a great play. And so, yeah. Obviously, she's created a team that makes a lot of difficulties in terms of prep. Thankfully, I don't have to play against it. All right, let's go to the next team. Next team, we have the Summersville Sizzlers here. And Night Owl looks like they're doing pretty well for themselves. It looks like we don't have info on kill differential for the week 3 and week 4 matches. But he's obviously won both of those. So hopefully we can get that info, because at the moment he's sitting at the very bottom of the 3-1 teams in 5th place here with -4 kill differential, but we'll see what ends up happening there. Obviously you can see Iron Treads is putting in work though. Oh my god. Out of the 2 games that it's been brought to, it has a +7 kill differential, which is insane. That's super good. But overall, he's got like the Expanding Force option with Armrouge, and a redirection option with Brute Bonnet, which is pretty cool. I'd really be interested to see how the team is doing from those last couple of games. And unfortunately, we just don't have stats for it, right? Like, we can't really get any info there. But overall, it looks like the team has quite a few options. Fake Out's an option. Setting Terrain is an option. Trick Room's an option. I don't know if he has any Tailwind setters, but he does have some Icy Wind mons, I believe. Like Frostlass has Icy Wind, so there's some ways to make your Pokemon faster in that regard. And you could also do like the booster energy, speed boosting Iron Tread, so there are ways to get some Pokemon in the faster ranges, but he also has some pretty solid priority between low kicks and the low kicks. And yeah, low kicks has good priority, which doesn't necessarily come really nicely with Terrain. But if you're taking the option of when you want to bring Terrain, then it's really not that big a deal to be able to either bring it or not bring it, right? And then you can bring those really strong like Sucker Punch, First Impression, priority moves from low kicks. But yeah, I don't know. Team looks overall obviously is doing well with it at 3-1, but without too much more information in terms of stats, it's hard to say how exactly the games are going or to even speculate on it. And next we have Bishmi, which, I mean, okay, so first thing I looked at was this number 24. Y'all gotta understand something. Bishmi has had Tyranitar, and I want to say the last three or four leagues here he's done in TGR. And every league, he brings T-Tar, and he brings it Weakness Policy. Like, y'all gotta respect Weakness Policy T-Tar, and clearly, y'all are not. It's just not happening. How are you letting this man get to 24 kills and 3 deaths? That is a plus 21 kill differential on Tyranitar. I'm just going to let that sink in for y'all. I don't know if there's anything else to say about the team. Man loves Arcanine as well, so not surprised about that. He might have made some trades, or these Pokemon just haven't been brought, but I don't know how you have a Dragapult in your team and you just don't bring it. You know what I mean? But yeah, it looks like he's got a really strong option here. Obviously, Bronzong and T-Tar are an amazing combination. There's so many ways to proc Weakness Policy on T-Tar. Bishmi is also one of the players that we have here that makes videos, so definitely go over and check out his channel. Yeah, watch how he can destroy everybody with Tyranitar, because clearly that's what's happening. It's wild. Yeah, that's absolutely insane. Okay, let's go to our next team. Actually, hold up, where's he at on the records? Yeah, he's fourth place, so he's pretty comfortably in a top spot here with the +6 skill differential. All right, next team, Atlantis Talonflames. Okay, so Joe's team here is at an 0-4 record. So it's going to be really, really tough, honestly, in order for him to make playoffs. Like, he's probably got to win every game throughout the rest of the season, just because, like, at the moment, the next people here are at 2 losses, and, like, you need people to lose and you need to win. So any more losses after this, and it's probably not making playoffs. So let's kind of see how the team's doing overall. So it looks like he does have some weather with Hippowdon and Houndstone, so trying to make use of that Sand Rush combination. We've got Garchomp, which is pretty strong, but I kind of find for VGC that I feel like Garchomp needs a little bit more support on its side of the field in order to really make things work. Just because it has some really... like, water types are obviously really, really strong. And so being weak to Ice Beam, which water types can typically run, makes it a little more difficult for this mon. And we can see from its record, it's not doing too great per se. But Garchomp obviously hits really hard. And having some nice combination in terms of mons with it from like Corviknight and Rotom-Mow. So Rotom-Mow would be a nice mon to be able to take care of like water types, but it still gets hit by the ice type coverage. So we'll see. I mean, it's not working too great for him at the moment. Would I break any recommendations in terms of transactions though? I mean, okay, so I kind of look at this team and I think it might be suffering a little bit from speed control actually. Like, this is a collection of pretty solid mons, but like, I think the only speed control that I could see here is weather from Hippowdon, and that only helps Houndstone. And then we have Tailwind, but a lot of these Pokemon are kind of mid-speed or fairly slow. And there's a couple of fast ones actually, like Blaze Tauros is pretty quick, and Darkspawn is actually pretty quick, and Garchomp of course is pretty fast. So it is nice to have Tailwind on the team to support those faster mons, but I don't think they have any Fake Out actually. So there's no tempo control or ways to get some of your other mons set up and get them into threatening positions. And so if anybody brings like Fake Out against this team, or like they don't have to worry about like Covert Cloak or anything like that, then that could be a way that it's difficult for the team to kind of break through and get itself into advantageous positions. Because like if you had a mon that was like, I don't know, had Fake Out and then had like Icy Wind. I don't know what mon has that combination of moves, but something like Fake Out plus Speed Control kind of idea is what I'm thinking. Then that would really support Garchomp to be able to like Sword Stance, potentially with a Terra to avoid some kind of hit, and then be in a position where you could like swap into Corviknight, for example, and set up Tailwind, something like that. Then I think that you could kind of get in a really strong position with a mon like Garchomp, but it doesn't look like the team is doing quite what it needs to overall. Does it not have a water type? Oh, that's weird. I just realized it doesn't have a water type. Water types are really nice on draft teams to have just in general, just because they're defensive. You know, they like have, yeah, they're very defensive. their typing is super good because it's only got 2 weaknesses and then a tons of resistances. And water offensively can hit a fair amount of stuff too. So I would consider making a trade to try to get a water type, but I mean, with it being mid-season and the record that we're at, it's going to be pretty tough. But that would be something I'd consider. Plus, you can always pull off the like attack into your Colossal to activate Steam Engine with like a weakness policy. You'd probably have to tear into something that's like only a little weak to it, but that might be something that you could use Colossal for as kind of a niche thing, which at the moment it just doesn't look like it has that as a combo. But yeah, so a couple of things that I would consider changing, and maybe from a drafting side of things, consider something that has a little bit more speed control on the team, and faster speed control, I guess, is my thought process here. Like something that's fast that has Tailwind, or fast that has Icy Wind, something like that. Then that would kind of support the team a little bit more. Next up, we have Ted here, which we're actually missing the info for this match, but I believe he ended up losing this one, so he would be at a 1-3 record at the moment. And yeah, I mean, the team looks pretty interesting. Like Hariyama for Graph is a really strong combo to get Trick Room set up, and so like having Camerupt in Trick Room, or having Clawitzer in Trick Room, having Garganacl in Trick Room are all really good things. So from that side of like for that perspective, like that looks pretty good, I would say. And then Fluttermane is obviously a really strong threat, and he's got, I don't know if he has any oh, he does have Follow Me, so that's actually really nice. So you could potentially like get I forget if Fluttermane has Nasty Plot. I know it has Calm Mind, so you could potentially get like a Calm Mind up while you're redirecting your attacks. And yeah, but it looks like the team from, like, if I were prepping against this team, I would consider mostly their Trick Room mode. Like I'd be looking at Hariyama and Friggraph to make sure that I could deal with those threats. And then making sure that I had enough to take on Garganacl, because this mon can be so bulky and so difficult to take down. And it looks like he's brought it a couple of times here, but it looks like people have been kind of prepped against it. Or he hasn't brought it to every game, at least. Yeah. But I kind of like the team. Like, there's a good amount of bulk on here, right? There's Hariyama, Friggraph, Garganacl. Like, those Pokemon are all pretty bulky. Clawitzer's fairly bulky and hits super hard. I think Camerupt is really bulky, if I remember correctly. So like there's a good amount of bulk on the team, so there are some ways you can kind of get some good switches around. But it might need, I mean, I guess the fast mode is kind of just Fluttermane, right? Staraptor can help there too. I feel like Staraptor has Tailwind, so that would kind of help out from that side of things. And if you can bring like a faster Clawitzer, then it could do a bit of work. But yeah, I mean, the team overall looks fairly good. The matches may have been close, and so maybe he's lost some close ones here. I mean, I guess -4 and -5 isn't too close, but yeah. I kind of like the team. I mean, Strudel obviously is not amazing, but it does have Prankster, and it's probably a super low tier mon. Like, I want to say this is a 1.1, but I don't know about Gogoat. But I think picking up Pachirisu is nice. So I like the team overall. It just doesn't look like it's quite coming together for him. And maybe he's just had some really tough opponents. I mean, man's got to play against T-Tar, right? So that's going to be tough to deal with. And then, yeah, it looks like Bloud is doing pretty well with this team. And so is King Sosa. So he's faced like 3 of the 3-1 teams at the moment. So it's been against very, very tough competition. Yeah. Okay, let's go and take a look at the next one. Which, speaking of tough competition, Bloud is currently top of the table at the moment with the highest differential for his games and a 3-1 record. So let's see how he's doing it. Ooh, okay, Goldengo Grimmsnarl. I love that combo. So one of the things that I've kind of fallen in love with for Grimmsnarl lately has been Fake Tears as an option with like fast special attackers. And you can really support Goldengo with screens to get it, help it set up with nasty plots, or use Fake Tears and like a Scarf Goldengo with like, what's that move? Make It Rain, deal a ton of damage. Yeah, so it looks like he's got some cool options here. This is super interesting because he's also got like Dreadnought and Satitan, which are normally like weather abusers, but I don't see any way to set those weathers. Maybe there are Pokemon with like Sunny, no, it would have to be Snowscape, I think is the name of the move now, or Rain Dance. But there isn't, Grimmsnarl doesn't have Prankster weather, so it'd have to be set up by something else, or them doing it themselves. But it looks like it may be a niche strategy for him, like he's used Dreadnought one time. So Titan's come twice, so looking at using that potentially a little bit more, but these ghost types are doing quite a bit of work for him, like Goldengo and Ceruledge are both really strong. And that's actually a tough combo to deal with, right? Like, you need to be able to deal with special ghost type attacks and physical ghost type attacks from 2 very heavy hitting mons. I believe both of them like have at least over 120 in their damaging stats between attack or special attacks. So definitely a tough combo to deal with, but it looks like quite a few Pokemon are putting in a lot of work for him. Oh, okay, so I didn't notice this right away, but he does have like Belly Drum from Satitan, and then you swap in Flamigo with CoStar, and you can get +6 attack on your Flamigo too, which that's pretty big actually. So that's a potential combo that people need to prep for and pay attention to. But yeah, I would say overall the team is looking pretty strong. He's got Redirection too, if I remember right. I think Venomoth has Rage Powder, so overall the team is doing really well for him, and like, I don't necessarily see anything that okay, so the only thing that I would consider changing, or maybe it's here and I just don't recognize it, is weather setting. Like, Dreadnought really wants to have weather, and Satitan is better in weather. I don't think it's necessary for it, because that mon can also just be sheer force with Life Orb and do a ton of damage that way too. But if there was a way for him to pick up some kind of weather setting mon, probably a Rain Dance mon of some kind, then I think that would be something worth considering. But obviously he's doing well in the team so far, so nothing really that you need to worry about or adjust. And yeah, just keep doing what you're doing, because the team is obviously working. Next up, we have the Vancouver Hitenas with Bread Pudding Official. And okay, I remember this team from from looking at it like at the end of the draft, and I just remember thinking like, oh my god, Qianpao and Dragonite, how are you supposed to deal with that? Like, 2 very, very heavy hitting physical threats with priority, right? Like Banded, Adamant, Terra Normal, Dragonite Extreme Speed sounds like such an insane amount of damage, while the opponent has 25% less defense. Like, come on. How do you prep against that? Like, you need to bring a ghost, right? Oh, you want to bring a ghost against Qianpao? That seems like a great plan, huh? Right? Like, that sounds super scary. So just from looking at those 2 mons, it creates some really difficult options for you from a team building perspective. And obviously we can see from the 3 games he's brought it to everyone so far. And I believe, like I said, when I was talking about the Sky Strikers, I believe Bread Pudding Official won their week 4 game, so I believe he's 2-2 at the moment. And yeah, like he's got a pretty strong team, I think, and has some good options from Trick Room on Toadstool to get Copperajah in and set up. Vaporeon could put a lot of work in Trick Room too. He's got Stantler, which I believe has Intimidate, if I'm thinking of the right Pokemon. So that's really nice as well. So you can get some info. You could also get info with Frisk too. I think Stantler's a pretty cool one. Yeah, and then he's got like Revival Blessing and Fake Out with Palmot. So some pretty good options here. Some very like fast aggro threats and some Pokemon that kind of play the long game, like Toadstool or Florges, or Copperajah can kind of play the long game, or Vaporeon, you know. So there's some pretty good Mons on this team, and Bread Pudding Official has won 2. I know he's won one of our leagues and one of our and one of the tournaments that we did at the end of Sword and Shield. So obviously a really good coach, and like dude knows what he's doing in terms of building teams and drafting them. And would I make any changes for here? I don't necessarily think so. I would probably consider trying to bring Vaporeon more often. Just because I think that Mon with Calm Mind now is a much stronger threat than it was in previous generations, so that might be something to consider. But like Dragonite Chien-Pao is probably the main threat, and if people try to bring a ton of physical defense, then maybe like a Calm Minding Vaporeon can put in a ton of work for him, while people are like struggling to deal with some of those really scary threats. Then I don't know, that might be something to consider. And next up we have King Sosa. Yeah, so his team, I hadn't actually looked at it yet, so I don't actually know what's on this one, but I mean obviously he's doing really well. He's 3-1 at the moment, and sitting in second place. So he's got a lot of redirection actually. This is a really interesting team because I would not have pegged this as being a very high tier team, but like Meowscarada is kind of like the biggest threat. I mean, you have to be worried about Grafaià and Slacking as well, but he's done a pretty good job. So you can see from the games played column here, he's done a really good job of mixing it up. You know, the only Pokemon out of his 4 games that's come every time is Meowscarada. And I think that makes some sense, right? Because you want to have a good amount of physical offense for your team, but like you got to be concerned about the Grafaià Slacking combo when you're prepping. You got to be concerned about like Mouse Hold, right? So that Pokemon on its own has so many different good sets it can run, between being like a Wise Glasses, I think it's Wise Glasses, Wise Glasses, the one where it makes your moves more accurate. whichever move that is. Wide Lens, there we go, Wide Lens. So Wide Lens, you got to be concerned about that, that kind of set, and being able to put out a ton of damage through this one between Technician and Population Bomb. Or just being a more supportive set, right? Like maybe you could do like Friend Guard with Follow Me, and then you have Volcarona that's setting up. So this team has no Mon that like when I look at it, I'm like, oh my god, I'm so incredibly scared about this Mon, you know? But when I put all of these Pokemon together, I think that King Sosa's put together a really cool team that makes some really difficult decisions for how his opponents are going to play the game. Just because you need to be concerned about any of these Pokemon coming. And yeah, I mean, being able to set up with Volcarona next to Mousehold seems like something that you got to be concerned about. He's got like a defensive Mon with Quillfish to be able to come in and intimidate, or just being a disruptive threat. Tailwind, I'm gonna assume that Grumpig has Trick Room. I don't actually know that for sure, but it seems like a Mon that would have it. And so I guess I don't know exactly which Mon wants to be in Trick Room per se, but maybe this is like an imprisoned Trick Room Mon, so you can stop it from going up. Wait, hold up. All I'd looked at was the games played. There is an 11 kill Magneton right here. What? Why does this Magneton have 11 kills? That's so wild to me. Damn, that's so crazy. But I mean, that's only in 2 games too, so maybe he just found the right matchup for it. That's wild. But yeah, I like the team that he's built because it feels like very middle of the road. There's no Mon that stands out on this team as being a massive, huge threat, but there obviously are some high tier mons, right? I know Volcarona and Mousehold are fairly highly tiered. Meowscarada should be fairly highly tiered as well, but yeah, he's put together a very kind of like middle of the road team with some really good supporting options, and apparently a kill leader at, I don't even know how many points Magneton is, but probably not very much. So overall, like, I think he's doing pretty well. This is how I like to build teams too. Building teams that like a lot of Pokemon can come, and I find ways to use all of them several times. So I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan, King Sosa. All right, we got 2 teams left here. Okay, so we have the Turtle Club Torkoals here, and they are okay. They're also one of our 04 teams, so they're sitting in a very difficult position in order to make it into playoffs. So let me take a look at what they got. So, oh, okay. I think I remember with this team, they're drafting. They picked like a ton of high tier Pokemon, and then they had to get like 1 and 2 pointers down at the end. And you can see what happens when people have that kind of strategy from drafting, is that all of these high tier Pokemon tend to be the ones that people prep for, and you just tend to not have as many, I'm saying quote unquote, options. Obviously you have the same number of Pokemon as everyone else, but the Pokemon that people are going to prep for and be concerned about are going to be these high tier Pokemon. And if they can expect the 6 that you're going to bring, which as we can see here, right, like out of the 3 games they've played, or 3 games we have data on, right? We don't have data on this game. But out of the 3 games that we have data on, basically all of these 5 Pokemon have been there. And then 2 of these in some combination have been there as well. And so you end up in a position where people are just able to predict what it is that you're going to bring and be able to fight against it. And so it makes it a lot easier from a prepping standpoint. So like I would probably look at this team and consider dropping some of these high tier threats, which is like, it's sad to do, right? But it means that you get to bring up some of the low tier mons, and you can make them more impactful for your team. Or honestly, you just use some of these and bring them. But that's kind of the thing though, right? We have 1, 2, 3 ice types. Too much of the same typing just means that from a prep standpoint, right? If you bring a Pokemon that resists ice type moves, then you're probably that you've already covered for 3 Pokemon, you know? Or if you bring a Pokemon that can hit ice type Pokemon, then you've covered for 3 options. So when you have a draft like this, you want to try to get high tier threats, or you want to try to get low tier threats that diversify away from your high tiers. And then you're going to look for opportunities to bring these low tiers in a way that will break the game open for some of your high tier mons. Or vice versa, right? And then these mons can kind of take over. But if they're not being brought, which is what's happening here, then the Pokemon that people are prepped for and that they care about aren't going to do as well. So I would consider looking at some transactions. There is still some time, but he's in a similar position for what we talked about with Talon Master J. Like, he's going to have to win most, if not all of his games in order to make it into playoffs. But I know Tony Torkoal, at least I think, is new to Draft League. I know he's played quite a bit of Pokemon in the past, but I don't know how much Draft League he's played. And so this is a good learning experience, right? So you can kind of see what's kind of working and what's not, you know, and you can make adjustments for playing in future seasons. But it's really nice to have him. He is a content creator as well. And he has been sick the last couple of weeks, so I'm hoping he's feeling better. That would be awesome to have him back in and feeling good. So anyway, but yeah, that would be my kind of take on the team and what I would consider looking at in terms of changes. I think like probably consider dropping some of these high tier mons and trying dropping a little bit lower down on the tier list. Actually, in particular, right, bringing, well, I guess Iron Bundle would scare away fire types, but a fire type like against this team would hit like 1, 2, 3, 4 mons for neutral or super effective damage. So like, and would resist fire attacks from Talonflame. So that's the kind of thing that you want to kind of think about when you're drafting teams, is that because people are able to change up their Pokemon EVs, stat lines, move pools, everything. Every week it's something you gotta be aware of. Okay, and our last team here, which is also sitting at a 2-2 record, just at the very edge of playoffs here, is the Pittsburgh Piplups, coached by Camo Dude. And so I see Torkoal, so obviously Sun Mode, which makes me look at next for Lilligant, which there is a Lilligant on the team. Makes a lot of sense. And he's got two, I believe, yeah, Roaring Moon and Great Tusk are both Photosynthesis Mons, so Torkoal definitely benefits them as well, and Iron Moth would love being in Sun. Wow, okay, so this team looks very strong. Morgan with screens to be able to set things up. If I remember correctly, Great Tusk was a transaction pick that he made partway through the season. I feel like I remember that being the case. I think he had Ting Lu before he made the transaction, so. And I can see Great Tusk fitting in here nicely. Gives him another really physically offensive threat, which probably would free up a lot of space for Iron Moth to be able to deal a ton of damage. But the Sun Mode obviously looks like it's working well, right? Like Torkoal's got a ton of KOs, and Lilligant's been brought quite a few times too, so I'm assuming something like a Chlorophyll after you to set up for Torkoal to do like really strong, powerful eruptions. Yeah, makes a ton of sense. And then Torkoal obviously would support these other mons, and like if you see a Roaring Moon next to you and there's a Torkoal, like you kind of need to KO both, right? And like you can't necessarily deal enough damage to both of them to stop either one from being able to do deal a ton of damage and take over the game. So yeah, I think the team looks pretty cool. I can see why Glaceon isn't being brought as much. Like, you don't necessarily want to bring that mon in a fire setting just because, like, well, actually, hold on. Let me think about it for a second. Glaceon with Freeze Dry would be able to threaten water types that are coming to try to take the fire type hits. I could see that being the case. So I like the Glaceon pick, actually. I don't know if that's a transaction. I know he's made a couple of them recently. But it's hard to say if that was something that was from previous in the season or not. But yeah, I think the team looks pretty strong. I don't know if I would necessarily change anything either. It's hard to say without knowing what's on the board, but I like a lot of the Pokemon that he has. Like Morgrem, I think with screens can kind of help some of these Pokemon set up. Like both Roaring Moon and Great Tusk have setup moves between Bulk Up on Great Tusk or Dragon Dance on Roaring Moon, which look really strong. Iron Moth could do a ton of damage just right off the bat with like a Booster Energy or Life Orb, say, and some really strong special attacking moves. Or set up with an Agility, I guess. That would be a possibility as well. But yeah, the team looks pretty strong overall. Does he have... So he doesn't really have necessarily a Trick Room. Okay, I was about to say he doesn't really have Trick Room covered, but he also does have Torkoal, which is like one of the slowest Pokemon ever. And so if people try to bring Trick Room against him, then Torkoal's going to be a huge threat and hard to deal with. So I don't know. I like the team that he has. I think that it can really work. And obviously we can see at 2-2, like that's a very respectable record, and definitely one that can make it into playoffs here. Because also what could go wrong is like some of these, oh my gosh, where's my mouse? Here we go. Some of the teams that are at 3-1, like if he keeps on a winning streak here and kind of stays at 2 losses, then he can leapfrog some of these other teams. Because at some point, some of them are gonna have to play each other, you know, and like somebody's gonna have to lose, and the standings could shake up here quite a bit. But yeah, it's definitely going to be a race for these bottom slots here, just because some of these teams in this middle slots up here are going to take some losses, and like this could very easily be like another win and a loss, for example, and like those teams switch places. If like Bishmi were to lose enough and Cameroon wins enough, right, he could jump up to 4th place. So there's quite a bit of versatility, I would say, in these middle slots right here, to where it could be anybody's game, right? And anybody could take it into playoffs and make a comeback for themselves to lock in some of those lower spots there. But yeah, this has been at the mid-season. I don't feel like anybody's out of it. It is scary for sure for Tony Torkoal and Talon Master J. Like they gotta start picking up some wins, otherwise they're on the outside looking in, you know. I don't think they have a great shot of making playoffs, but For the rest of these teams, like I think everybody else here has a very good shot at making playoffs, and it can be a pretty tight race all the way up until the end. So anyway, we're getting to the end here. Let me know what you think about the teams. Who do you think was gonna come out and make it into the playoffs here? Who do you think is gonna miss out? Which team has been your favorite? Is there any team that we talked about that has a mode that maybe I missed, or that you really liked the Pokemon that they have, or liked what they're doing in terms of usage, or something along those lines? For me, that answer would be the LA Infernape. I love how King Sos is using this team. I think the way he's using it is making it very hard for people to prep for him, and I absolutely love that kind of thing coming up. So anyway, share what you like about teams, what you dislike, all that kind of stuff, anything you want. And yeah, if you want to check out the games and see how things are going, check out the server link below, and you can hop in the server to check out our VGC divisions between Violet, or we have another one for Scarlet as well. And yeah, I'll go and sign off right here. And again, if you have any comments, go and share them down below, and I'll catch you on the next one.